Mhm.
That's amazing. It's something like I could close my eyes to and like the the episode is sorry. I got like stuck there. No, because that was so dope. Like you hit me. That was good.
They let it talk down when I'm not around, yeah. It's only tied down when I'm out of town, no. I don't trust many when I'm in the city. I've never been a shooter, but I keep them with me. Watch them steal the style and say they inspire. Bitch, I've been a boss who wanna get higher. They let it talk down when I'm not around.
What's good, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Talk Down, and today I'm joined by Juan and Des.
Hi.
Welcome, Des.
Hello.
So Des, you're a life coach, right?
Yes, I am.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, right before we kick it off.
Yeah, sure. So I am a life coach. I specialize in reparenting. If you haven't heard of what reparenting is, it's essentially a mindset tool that we use where we go all the way back in time to your childhood and look to see, the different characteristics that you embody today that may make you overanalyze things or question things. It's going to show how you are in relationships. And the fascinating thing about reparenting and why I specialize in this specifically is because your brain is being developed during childhood. So we're setting a foundation here at a very young age, and then we're pattern beings. And so we go through repetition in that same household, in that same unit. That's really going to set you up for how you emerge in adulthood and who you're unconsciously attracted to and the patterns that you have and what you do without even thinking about it. So I typically work with women who battle with perfectionism, very high achieving women. They have a little bit of a different way that inner voice is talking to them that I happen to know quite well. But yeah, that's what I do. I really enjoy being able to help women break through barriers. And even though I do specialize with women, the mind is the mind. So this can be applied to anybody.
Cool. Real quick, Des, is it safe to say that like reparenting is almost like reprogramming?
Yeah, you could say that. Absolutely. I don't see too much difference other than me being hyper focused on childhood dynamics versus reprogramming could be like you today and not even, looking at childhood.
Reprogram your youth to kind of see what you developed into it.
Absolutely.
That's dope, man.
Yeah, so make sure you follow her on Instagram or social media because her followers keep going up. So you definitely want to get in while she's available now. And you'll see from this episode that she's a very insightful person. I think she was one of the top people on our list when we wanted to have guests. And it's a testament to her schedule, the fact that we had to book this, like 2 months in advance, I think. So please hit her up, follow her. It's worth it. And based on that, your audience, shout out to your audience for these questions and topics that we have here for this episode. As soon as you posted them, I think I looked at them and I was like, I'm in immediately. And I know Ryan probably thought the same thing. So without further ado, let's talk about it. So the first question, I would say, there's a lot to uncover on this one. It's why is self-trust so hard? And anyone could take it away because I know there's a lot of juicy I think there's a lot that each of us could bring to it because there could be a lot of key elements that would cause this, right? It's never one thing, I would say, for self-trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll jump in real quick. I think with anything self, right? Whether it's trust, confidence, love, whatever, it's a sense of you feel like you lack things, right? So when you don't trust yourself, when you're not confident, when you don't love yourself, in my opinion, it's due to lack of whether it's knowledge, beliefs, commitments, emotions, and understanding how you can get to a point where those make more sense to you, right? I feel like everybody always says, oh, I know myself the best, right? And it's easy to say that because, you spend the most time with yourself. But at what point do you start realizing that maybe you're too close to realize that, hey, I can't see myself in the full picture, right? And I did read some things on this, and it was saying that maybe you are too close to yourself to realize the bigger picture. And for example, let's say I'm trying to read words on a piece of paper and I have that piece of paper right up to my face. Those words are going to be blurred and misconstrued and biased because not only is it so close to my face, but I do have pre-existing judgment and stuff like that. So whether I'm extending a hand to a friend or self-evaluating myself and spreading my hands out to get a better understanding, I think it allows you to see things from a different perspective and not just yourself.
For sure, for sure. So when I think about self-trust, I also think about validation, right? So if we're lacking self-trust, usually we're looking outwards for validation. Someone to tell us, yes, this is right, keep going, or you're doing a good job. And so if we lack that self-trust, then we're still questioning our decision-making, right? So I'm always typically going to go back to childhood. So if we have a parent who is not encouraging your decision-making skills, or who kind of encourages you to be more dependent on them, I am the parent, you are the child, what I say goes. And if we have a parent who has some control issues, then they're going to break down that decision-making skills for the child. So let's say we have a kiddo who's doing really well in school, but they're super passionate about arts and crafts, right? And they want to become an artist, but their parent is really pushing them to go more on that academic route. So that child is going to be praised for doing well in school, but when it comes to that artistic realm, they may not get that validation that they need. And so then they're going to question their creativity. And so that's going to continue to develop into adulthood when they're starting to pursue something that they're super passionate about. And this can ramp up for anything even outside of just like hobbies or interests. Sometimes the most simple things like, what school do I pick? What job do I pick? Am I picking the right kind of people to date? I don't know. Let me go ask my friends and send you a million screenshots because I can't choose for myself. That development and that lack of self-trust is created way, way, way long ago. And without that reinforcement and positive encouragement around, no, you can trust yourself. Your decision-making is totally fine. And if you mess up and make mistakes, that's okay too.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you said exactly what was on my mind when you mentioned the mom, the parent, the parent aspect, because development plays a key part in who we are when we're adults, right? And I don't think that really gets talked about enough. I always pull from my own life when it comes to these scenarios and self-trust, because I've been there, right? We've all been there. And there are different reasons, and I think that the most is your environment and the people you're around. I think play a major role in molding who we are as people. So I would say that why not say that also played a role in me having that too, right? Because I didn't know any better. So if you live in an overly critical environment, you're afraid to take the next step because you don't want to get criticized, right? So how can I trust myself when I've been brought up to not trust myself, right? Like you said. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And for anyone, I think that the beauty of this is, and anything we talk about, is that there's always going to be people that are willing to talk it through with you, right? There's always people that have been through what you've been through. I've been there. All of us have been there, right? So if when it comes to self-trust, I think one of the main things that you can do is use your resources. If you don't want someone around you because you're embarrassed, then find somebody totally different, like a Desiree, right? Like somebody that could help kickstart with the right conversations. That's all you need.
I have a question. What do we, and I'll ask this to both of you guys, what do you tell somebody who lacks self-trust and they do tell people their ideas, whether they're an artist or they do want to change careers, and their parents or their siblings or their friends are like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, again, the same thing that we struggle with our childhood, where we're looking for confirmation to see it. Hey, I don't fully trust myself. Do you think this is a good idea? Of course, we're going to look to loved ones for that information. But at the end of the day, when do you tell yourself, I have to make this choice for myself? And yeah, this is the right choice, whether anybody else disagrees or agrees with me.
That gut feeling, right? That gut feeling, like we have to learn how to trust that. We have an internal compass, our intuition. So even having the idea that we want to do something different, and we might be asking some friends and family and loved ones, like, what do you think? Because I care about your opinion. But ultimately, like, if you know you want this, you got to go for it. You got to go for it. And realizing too, like zooming out a little bit, I practice this a lot because we can get really caught up in the, okay, if I make this decision, then this and this is going to happen, right? But if we zoom all the way out, it's like, I actually got some breathing room. There's a few different ways that this could go if I make this decision. And we're allowed to think about all the good that can come from making that decision. I think it can be really easy to think about the negatives, which kind of like deter us away from following through or gathering information. I noticed that a lot, not only in myself, you know, and kind of naturally preparing like, okay, worst case scenario, what's going to happen? But I think a lot of us do that.
What about you, Juan?
I think that I feel like I've learned to trust myself when I developed closer to who I'm going to be as a person. And, you know, it's a boring and cliche answer, but I feel like I'm more secure in my step, left, right, every day. Everything I do, whether it's waking up, I do it more with my head held high, regardless of who sees or cares about what I did. And they're all small accomplishments to me, right? Like, in order to be able to get through my day, if I just like trust myself to put a list in my head together, this is what I'm going to accomplish, big or small. I'm accomplishing goals. So I have to trust myself because I'm keeping myself accountable. I'm putting myself in the right path for me. When I started loving myself, I think that's when I started trusting myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Prioritization of self.
Yeah.
It's really easy to put everybody else in front of us. I don't know why that comes so easy to us, but we have to remember, like, you're the star of the show. This is your life.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be living it for everybody else and then you're just continuously on the back burner. You're missing the point.
That's true.
For me, and just to touch up on this, and maybe we can finish with this. Speaking for myself, and maybe you guys can relate with self-trust. I think one of the hardest things when we do have people that we do love and they're doubting us or they don't trust us, but we know we trust ourselves. I think borrowing trust from people who are in those same field or those same environments, like, damn, like maybe I can have a conversation with this person because they understand what I'm thinking. Like they believe what I believe. And if I feel that more, if I think it more, I'm assured in myself because I'm building trust within myself that I can actually take that next step. And despite what my friends and my family are telling me, I have to take this lunge. And now I have a little bit more assurance from people who've done the same thing that I'm doing.
Yes.
I think that for me, that helped me the most transitioning for sure.
Absolutely.
And then your relationships, the other relationships improve, right? Because now you have that trust. You're so trusting in yourself that you're willing to not have a wall because you're going to trust that intuition. This is a good person. I can trust this person, right? So that's really good stuff. And I'm sure we can talk about this for like 4 hours, 5 hours, maybe for days. But the next one was a really good one because I think we can tackle it in two different parts, and then they also coincide at one point too, right? So it's infidelities and insecurities. So I'm curious to see what I'm going to learn because you two, I feel like, you know, I respect your perspective. So when you think of infidelities and insecurities, you think of them together sometimes, right? For the most part. But, you know, someone take it away. I'm ready to learn. Let's talk about it.
Oh, infidelities, insecurities. Okay, so I might play a little devil's advocate here on this one just for fun. I think ultimately this is going to go back to communication in the partnership. So there has to have been a lack of communication for someone to step out on somebody else, right? And I think we're naturally sexual and curious beings. I'm not excusing infidelity, but if that foundation of the relationship is set where we have open and honest communication, then that won't come as a surprise, or you guys already know where you stand on that. You know, times have changed. The way these relationship dynamics are set up, like, what do you want? We got a list here. You know, you can really choose how you want to be in a relationship. But tied with insecurity, the way I kind of see somebody stepping out on somebody else is, first, they didn't speak up when a need wasn't met. Right. And so they may not have those communication skills, or they may be worried that if they do share what they want, their partner isn't open-minded. So they know they're just going to like blow up on them, or we're not having this conversation. This is how I feel, period. You know, and there's no room for dialogue. And so then we get the sneakiness. Okay, well, I'm just going to step out and get this need met and then come back and, pretend it's a happy house. But when we have lies are always going to resurface. So it's kind of like pick your poison here with that. Another thought I have about infidelity, I have so many thoughts. I can go so many ways with this. It could also be, I think infidelity is almost like a scarcity mindset. Your needs aren't being met. You don't know how to, again, get that validation that you need. And so you need it from a lot of different people to feel whole. And so there could be an issue where that self-love hasn't been prioritized. And so now you need love from everybody that you can to kind of make you feel better about yourself. So I'm gonna hand it over. Oh, that's my piece on that one.
Let me touch on a real quick one. I think I'm gonna go with Des here and say that upon any relationship, things have to be communicated. There will always be misunderstandings if you're not understood, right? So if you feel like, hey, because everybody has insecurities at the end of the day, let's be honest, right? Infidelity is in my opinion, is a byproduct of not listening, not understanding situations, and just being ignorant, right? Because at the end of the day, is it foolish of me to say that infidelity is led because of characteristics or traits from your partner? Like, yeah, I was having infidelities, but is it only my fault? Like, and is there a victim? Is there somebody who forced this upon somebody? Like, oh, you don't pay attention to me enough. Oh, you don't do this. There's many reasons that lead to infidelity, but that's not the point. I think taking accountability on both sides. It's not just the person who's cheating or whatever it is, because infidelity is in the eye of the beholder. There's levels to it. Somebody kissing, somebody, whether it's sexual or talking outside of a relationship, whatever. Like, there's many levels to it. But at the end of the day, I think both sides have to take accountability and be like, hey, it was a problem on both ends. It didn't work, but what can we take away from this? And what can I take into a next relationship where that doesn't happen again?
Well, hold on real quick. So, because I know a lot of people are going to watch this and be like, hold on. So if someone cheats and gets and has a sexual act, right? I'm supposed to take a step back and learn what I did wrong, right? Like, you know what I mean? That's like, somebody's going to think about it that way too.
What I'm saying is, if your partner is consistently having conversations with you and you're ignoring that, like, what do you expect? Like, you mean, like, at what point am I going to be like, damn, yeah, I fucked up. Like,
yeah,
you have to be like, you have to take some account. I'm not saying all of it's not all your fault.
Right. No, I was just, yeah. It's, as long as, like, yeah, you've mentioned it a few times, like, yo, I want to, and it's not being talked about, and then,
like, bro,
it just happened. One of those situations.
I don't know how it happened. It just happened. It was an accident.
I hear that, and it's like, man, that's lazy. That's a lazy way of again, taking accountability for what you did or you didn't do. Like, a relationship, a lot goes into it. It's not just, oh, I'm gonna be committed, or there's many levels to it.
There's so many levels.
Oh,
and
yeah.
not to, and if anybody watching has been cheated on, I don't want to invalidate your experience.
Exactly.
Because your reality is real and it hurts. It's like this just stomach ache because you thought you could trust somebody and that trust was broken. But when we become more aware of ourselves and realize, like, this is a whole human and you are a whole human and you have completely different worlds. Yeah. And that, we don't necessarily want to mesh those worlds and then you're just living in this, like, world together. We have to keep our autonomy to stay happy and to give permission to people to be themselves in their full expression. And sometimes that can be really hard to do because we're so focused on in our world that we forget that this person over here who may have stepped out on you may have a whole history of similar behavior. They may be too ashamed to share it. They may lie. There's so many different scenarios why this might happen. But if we don't ask to be let into their view and their perception of the world, then we're not going to be able to know how they're thinking, how they're behaving. And not everybody is super open to that conversation too. But definitely don't want to invalidate anybody's experience. I used to really be, like, possessive and jealous, and that came from the insecurity within myself. And it also came with kind of this image that I was raised on, like, this is what love is. You know, love is like, you owe me everything, and this is, you know, my end all and be all. Like, that's kind of like what I saw. But it's just not real. You know, like, healthy ass relationships are actually like quite stable and consistent, and you have to work on like igniting that fire and being intentional, because if you're used to being in relationships that are up and down and all around, and like one day you love them, the next day you hate them, but oh, I love that feeling and I'm addicted to it, like, that is not sustainable.
Exactly.
And I agree. I'm not condoning cheating. I'm not saying it's the other person's fault, or I'm not trying to pick blame on somebody.
Right.
What I'm saying is, we have to understand it on from both sides. I'm not just defending the person who was cheating. I'm not defending the person who got cheated on. I'm trying to understand it because again, once you understand more, for people who are like, oh, I'm consistently cheating on, there's a problem. There's something's happening where and it's unfair that it's happening to you. I'm not saying that's right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's right, but at what point do we look ourselves in the mirror and be like, all right, maybe
there's got to be some accountability there. Absolutely. I agree with you.
You keep picking cheaters by accident,
because at some point, if you're the person that's known as I always get cheated on, at some point your friends have probably identified that too, and they've probably already told you about it, right? And you've chosen to ignore it because you're the star of the movie.
Yeah, right. I'm the protagonist, remember?
So I think that circling back to insecurities, I think that there's a lot of self-doubt. There's no self-trust there, right? So these are people that have always and like you said, we've been taught we're halves of a whole, right? Like, oh, my other half is somewhere, like, you know, that's what's going to complete me. So we're incomplete. Like, we're taught to be incomplete until we find like love. So we latch on to people to help complete us.
Right.
And it's half backwards, because now we've probably taken a chunk that we've like helped create, and we've completely negated it by putting someone else in our lives. So some people tilt the other way. Some people, they forget about all of their friends. They latch on to their significant other's friends. And away we go with you losing more of yourself and then becoming this other person, right? So you've stunted your growth at the expense of completing yourself, supposedly, right? So I think that when it comes to insecurities, I think we start there. When we talk about accountability, especially Ryan, right? Like, if you want to be held accountable, then you have to look at that pattern too, right? So why are you disconnecting from your friends? And then when it doesn't work out with a significant other, you go back and, hey girl, I should have, or hey dude, I should have listened to you. You know what I mean? Like, so, and I feel like the infidelities come from people that are in relationships that are just not ready to be in them.
Yeah, some people are bored. There's many levels to why people are infidel, like whatever. I can't even say that thing.
Yeah, I agree with Desiree though, when she said that when you don't think about the other person's feeling, it's more of a concept than it is an actual like human being that you're gonna hurt, right? So to me, the first thing I wrote down when you both of you started talking was culture, and I kept circling back to that word culture, because if you ever, I'm gonna use Dominicans because that's what I grew up as, right? Like, so if I'm a Dominican and someone that I know, another Dominican, cheated on his girl, is like, yo, damn, that's what's up. You know, we don't think about the girl, right? We don't think about what's been done. And like Ryan always likes to say, and we've been learning lately, is now put myself in her shoes. You know, that would be super impactful to my life.
Juan, you literally took the words out of my. I hate when you do that. But literally, for me, the way I've been able to deal with my own insecurities and even infidelities is, how would I feel if that was me? Like, I try to put myself in my partner's shoes. I try to put myself in my friend's shoes. And sometimes that hurts me more than it should, because I'm feeling things I shouldn't be feeling. But at the end of the day, I'm a human being. And I think that's what helps me the most. If I can feel how you feel, I'm gonna be more responsible, right, within myself. Because at the end of the day, you don't know anybody nothing. But if you're in a relationship, you do owe people stuff. Like, you committed to that stuff at the end of the day. And then marriage is a whole nother level. That's when I'm just speaking on like boyfriend, girlfriend. If you're married, you made a whole nother commitment.
That's
so I can never understand cheating because of the way I think. I put myself in other people's shoes. I put myself in those moments where like, damn, like how did it get to that? Like I would try to have the conversation, like I said, and communicate like, hey, look, I'm not happy with this. Or end it so it wouldn't lead to any infidelities or cheating or stuff like that. Like just being more accountable for yourself, man.
For sure. Yeah. And open dialogue, open communication. You know, when I'm not married, I'm in a committed relationship, but when I'm not in a rush to the altar because I want to continue to know this person, you know, and I also need to make sure that we're going to change. If we do agree to life, we're going to change a whole lot in that time together. And anything that comes up should be able to be discussed, even if it's like, I'm kind of having thoughts, like I'm kind of getting curious. And I just would rather come to you first. Like, how do you feel about that? Do you have these thoughts too? You know, like it should be okay to discuss anything, especially if you're planning on sharing a life together, you know, trying to walk alongside each other, and not shaming people for having thoughts, you know, open that. And it could get interesting. Who knows?
Yeah, no, it's so hard. You think about that with, if like Des just said, if you even like, I think and I've had talks. I'm in a relationship and I've had talks with my girlfriend, and it's like not shaming somebody for telling you exactly what it is. Like, yeah, you want people to be honest, but how honest? Because if somebody's honest with you, be like, wait, what the hell? Like, no, I don't want you to be that honest. Like,
right.
No levels to it. So you have to be open to hearing the whole truth. Like, this is what the whole truth is, and if you can't deal with it, then we're like, okay, we gotta something's gotta change, or we gotta get better, so we're not dealing with this kind of stuff. But,
yeah, share, but don't overshare either, right?
Be prepared to, if you want that, that's what you're gonna get.
It also depends on like what you're looking for. You know, if you can't handle it, then you know maybe keep dating and find someone who's going to meet you on that level. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but you have to figure out like it's not necessarily that someone's too much for you. You know, like you have to see like how do you operate with other people, and is there patterns going on? Do you notice similarities with partners and with friendships? You know, that's going to tell you a lot. Also, there's another side to this. You could, if you are one of those people who are finding yourself like, I always get cheated on, there is something that you are attracted to in that type of person. Not necessarily attracted to people who actually cheat on you, but maybe avoidance, or emotionally unavailable people. There could be an unconscious attraction to that. So if you are someone who kind of falls in that bucket, think about your parents and see big things with infidelity and parenting types. If a parent made promises to you often and constantly broke those promises or didn't quite follow through with that, you are used to like accepting the fact that people aren't going to follow through for you.
Wow.
And so you're used to it. And so totally natural for you to be attracted to that in your adult life and not even realizing it. But then you're dealing with all of this heartache because on that deep, deep level, it's familiar. And things that are familiar to our brain tell us this is good, whether it's good for us or not. So just something to think about.
No, absolutely. I agree.
Wow.
I agree.
I never thought about it that way.
I completely agree. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, that just blew my mind actually. that I don't know. It's a lot to uncover there. I do have a question in terms of infidelity, and then when once you've crossed that threshold from being committed to being married, right? Officially committed, right? I would say.
Yeah.
Not everyone believes in marriage, and I don't know. I might be on the cusp. But let's say you are married and your other half has confided in you that they've had a weak moment and they cheated, and it was a one-off thing, and it was a moment of weakness. You know, it was what if this is the truth that they're bringing to you? How would you react?
Yeah. So I know I would be human and probably be very mad and frustrated first and foremost. And then there always seems to be times where I can see like I can back out. I do a really good job of like backing out, and nobody's perfect, right? So I know I would be upset and hurt, obviously. But then the conversation would come back around. Like for me, that doesn't. If I'm married, that's not that one time. Probably isn't going to break my marriage.
Right.
But I do want to better understand like where was this broken, you know, or like what needs need to be met for you. Also, why did you feel like you couldn't come to me to talk about this before stepping out? You know, there's a lot of questions to unpack there. And better understand that person, because again, we're going to change and we're going to have different seasons in our life, and there might be a moment of weakness. I mean, I don't know, I just seems almost, not to condone anything, but when we're thinking about a lifetime relationship, like things are going to happen.
Long time.
It's a long ass time. So we can't necessarily be super surprised, like open communication, all of that. But like, I'm also not going to place you on a pedestal and say you have to be perfect and you can't do this and this and this, or you're not going to get my love anymore, or I'm going to throw our marriage in the trash. And some may say, well, stepping out is you throwing our marriage in the trash, and that's valid, you know?
For better or worse.
Right?
Right? You have to live within that right there. How about you, Ryan? What do you think?
As you guys were talking about that, the first thing that popped into my mind was Will Smith and Jada Pinkett.
Yeah.
Right? We joke and we talk about like entanglements and stuff, and yeah, haha, everybody could laugh at it. But like at the end of the day, like people were hurt. Like Will Smith was hurt. Like I'm sure Jada was hurt too. And if anything, if we look for examples, I think we can see that they're still able to communicate despite how hurt.
Yeah.
Of it. They were separated or on the cusp of being separated. So there's different stages of whatever, like somebody being committed and married or whatever. But yeah, it's the fact that they can have these conversations. It depends. It's person by person too.
Yeah.
Some people can't deal with it. Some people can't deal with it.
Yeah, and that's fine too. Again, it's up to you.
Yeah.
And you know, we're here sharing our personal perspectives. But I love like Jill or Will and Jada's. I watched the whole thing with my partner actually, and like we discussed afterwards, like, what do you think about that? And we fucking loved it. Like just that open, raw communication, and just not being naive to the fact that these are flawed beings. We all are. And just that dropping that expectation of perfection is going to help you as a person, and it's also going to relieve your partner or significant other from like trying to be like, imagine like if you have like this idea of a person that is so unfair to the person.
Yeah.
Put them on pedestals, and everybody doesn't have a good balance.
Right. Yeah.
The only thing I didn't really like about that whole situation, and it's, you know, obviously it's not my situation for me to like or dislike, you know, today's age, we've like shoehorned ourselves into people's lives because of the media, social media. But it's how, you know, I feel like they were also embarrassed that this came out.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Like, because I think it's been known that they've had a relationship where, you know, they're in love. Right. So does that mean that they physically need to please each other all the time? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the fact that, you know, again, and I'm never going to shame anyone for telling their truth.
Yeah.
I just feel like iffy about that whole situation. I wish that would have never come out and the person would have still gotten the, you know, the cure or something like that. But then that's not how it works, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
Real
yeah.
life.
Yeah, and you know, sorry to Will and Jada for like putting their marriage like bam right here in the forefront, but it's a great example of two people that love each other, that, you know, these are the lows that you have to fight through when you get married.
Yeah, we don't have enough examples of that, honestly. Like the way that we have been conditioned to see love and marriage somehow like erased all of the hard stuff.
Yeah.
You know, then you have like this unrealistic expectation of relationships and marriage. And when we don't have examples of that, when it happens to us, we think something's wrong. You know what I mean? And so I feel like, no, this is actually totally normal.
Yeah.
And this stuff should probably be happening. You need to have a little adversity in your relationship. Can you imagine when you bring kids in? that's a whole nother level.
That's
That's
another
going to
level.
try you on a whole different level.
Yeah, you're
You know,
definitely
both
anchored
sides
in at
need
that
to be
point.
exposed.
You
Yeah.
know, too, that we don't give enough credit to, because we don't get to see it as much unless it's in your personal life. But people who like you said, there's like, it probably wouldn't break your marriage. How much power, how much and maybe not power is the word I'm looking for, but how much more respect you can have for a person who can, or how much strength, that's the word I want, how much strength it takes to actually be able to be like, okay, I can forgive you for this and we can continue to grow. Like, or even like marriages or people who get divorced and they have kids and they have to deal within this dynamic still where it's like, hey, we have kids at the end of it. We have to be responsible adult and not have hate towards each other despite whatever happened in the situation. I think we don't see that enough. We don't see that enough. For me, yes, it's human to be hurt and emotional when things happen to you. But at the end of the day, I can speak for myself and say that I won't hate somebody if they cheated on me. I can, if whether it's marriage or a relationship, like it's not for me to understand. But I can look past that and be like, all right, you know, it wasn't meant for, or it was just like I don't even know what the word is, but I can look there. You don't have to hate things that hurt you all the time. And I think a lot of people just want to hate everything that makes them feel bad.
Yeah, that's very true, dude. Spitting bars over here, right? You talking about it, boy.
Yeah.
So I think that another one we could stay on for hours. I know it. I feel it. In the comment section below is probably already people that have added their perspectives. It's not added. Let's talk. Let's act. Let's talk. Let's interact.
And it's a question, and I'm looking forward to responding to a lot of you guys and hearing maybe from personal experiences and any questions you might have for any of us. We'll be glad to respond in the best way we can.
Yeah. And the last one is the imposter syndrome. And I love these shows because we learn so much. I'm excited because I get free education. That's like the best excuse to have this. So the imposter syndrome, I looked it up and I didn't realize I suffer from this. I have this. I know that for a fact. And I told Ryan and I was like, you know, it took me a little to kind of get myself back in the swing of like recording this episode because I was just faced with the truth about myself. And I used to talk about it being, well, I'm just a perfectionist, right? Or, nah, you know, every single one. Before I hijack the conversation, I would love to hear, Des, I would love to hear your perspective on the imposter syndrome. So go ahead. Let's talk about it.
For sure. So imposter syndrome. So we all have an authentic version of ourselves. That is who we were, who we are before any conditioning got in the way. So before we were told how to dress, how to speak, how to act, how to present ourselves. That other side of us, how to speak, how to act, how to dress, is something called our role selves, our conditioned parts of ourselves, right? So if we have our authentic self here and our role self is really trying to put us into something that we authentically aren't, right? So if we want to be famous or something and we also want to be a professional, we have an idea of how we should show up and how we should speak and how we should talk. But if that's completely out of alignment for who you really are and you like to drop a few F-bombs and, you know, maybe like dance to Drake every single day, then you're going to have a really hard time. You're going to start feeling like, well, this isn't the image that I should be, but I'm here. And so I feel like a bit of an imposter. So when role and authentic don't align, that's when we feel like we're becoming an imposter, because in a way we're hiding parts of who we actually are to be accepted, when really you just as you are can be accepted. You just have to accept it for yourself.
For me, I remember even everything I've done, and Ryan, we also had a producing team. Like we had clients and everything. But it's like I used to feel like humility. I confused it with this, right? Because I thought that if someone complimented me on my work, and because I'm such a perfectionist and that was good work, you know, I thought it was me being humble. But I think that what that's done is that's created this overly humble person where I'm not even giving myself credit when I do something that's good, right? So so at that point, I've conditioned myself to look for acceptance, or, you know, to look for compliments from other people, to like hold me up, my crutch, right?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that that's what imposter syndrome meant. I honestly thought it meant like people that are fronting on Instagram. I thought that, you know, people that like, you know, taking the fake pictures. I like, okay, we'll talk about social media for a little bit, but in this, it's almost like a sobering thing to research and look at, and that's the beauty of the information that we have ahead of us. You know, whether you vet that to be facts or fiction, that's on you. But I looked it up, and right there, staring in front of me, was this imposter syndrome, and I was like, you know, yeah, okay, I thought of it as me being a perfectionist. Remember, Rye, like back in the day where, yeah, you know, it doesn't really sound good to me. We know people in our lives that do that. And it's just strange to hear the term, and I'd finally know what it is. And, you know, I don't have to accept that for what it is, right? I should give myself a little bit of credit, and that's the beauty of learning. Give yourself room for growth, people.
And it's healthy. It's so healthy. We have to acknowledge our wins. Or what's the motivation? You know, then we start to feel burnout, or we have that constant feeling of, well, it's not good enough yet. It's not good enough yet. It's not good enough yet. Right?
Yeah. That's what then no actions are taken because you're consistently doubting everything.
Procrastination.
Oh my God, yeah. And how about not being good at doing something for the first time? Right? So you're used to things, you're being a natural at everything, so you don't try anything that you know you're gonna fail at, because you're supposed to be good at everything.
I feel like at one point or another, everybody feels like an imposter, right? And I read this one quote, and it kind of blew my mind when I read it, because they were talking about, they said you can still have an imposter moment, but not an imposter life, right? And I think a lot of people feel very guilty because at the beginning, when we're talking about Des, and she knows a lot more than she did when she first started doing what she's doing. I know a lot more than I did when I first started. So everybody is almost faking it or impostering at the beginning of whatever they're becoming experts in the field of, right? You have to learn, but it gets to a point where we get to a point where we don't give ourselves the credit because we put the time in. We learned all of this stuff, and I think whether Juan was saying, like, whether you're a perfectionist or there's a standard that you hold yourself to, you got to look back sometimes and be like, damn, like where was I when I first started doing this? And we have these thoughts where, for me, the way I don't talk down about myself, or I don't, whenever I'm having an imposter moment, I start having these thoughts where, if what I'm saying is hurting me or helping me, right? And if I'm consistently just hurting myself and putting myself down, or I'm not good enough, or I can't, you're never gonna get to that point where you know you can get to, because you're always gonna feel like you don't belong or you're an imposter. So you have to, I don't know what the opposite antonym is for imposter. It's not coming to my head right now, but whatever it is, you have to work and fight to become that. Because if not, you're always gonna be an imposter. You're always gonna be an imposter for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, how many of us have been in meetings and we know the answer and we just don't want to say it, or we want to ask a question because we feel like, oh, everybody probably hasn't asked, so I should know this. That's been identified to be some traits of having imposter syndrome. So you're right, Ryan. I think that it's hard to believe in yourself, right? When you think of yourself in a certain way.
Yeah, man. Everybody isn't the best when they first start out. Like, everybody's an expert.
Absolutely. And
do you feel at any point in your life you've experienced being like an imposter or imposter syndrome, like heavy? Do you feel like you're better off now than you were a few years ago, probably?
Are you asking me?
Both. Sorry. Both. So Ryan, I'm always curious because I know Ryan's growth too, right? So I wonder if he's had a moment there where.
Really? What? That's why when I, because there's layers to this imposter syndrome. But when I first heard it from that perspective, it was like, man, like I always knew certain things, but I never believed. So you feel like an imposter. You're like, damn, do I even belong here? Like, but then you're like, when people are confirming, like, dang, no, you know some stuff, or no, what you're doing is helping. Like, you are helping people. whether you believe it or not. I think that's the byproduct of when you do have those imposter moments. Like, nah, like I do belong here, or and again, the thing that has always pissed me off are the people, and I don't want to attack anybody, but are the people that assume things are luck, assume things just happen by chance. Nobody worked hard for anything. Like there's nothing more that is more I can't even think of the word because I don't want to get frustrated, but it's almost like you're calling me an imposter because you're dealing with it.
Yeah.
I worked hard to understand everything I know now. Like I'm not faking it anymore. Like they talk about faking it until you make it, but you at one point or another, and to use sports for reference really quick, like Michael Jordan had to learn how to make shots. Mm-hmm. Like he had to shoot and shoot. So for that to be like, oh yeah, that was a lucky shot. Like, how do you know? Yeah. Do you know how many shots he took? You mean like so stuff like that is like you don't understand somebody's background to call somebody lucky or to call somebody an imposter. I would never call somebody an imposter or a fake.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, having the imposter syndrome does mean that you put in the work. You just doubt yourself. That's all. It doesn't mean that you haven't put in the work. Yeah, right. That's so true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely felt it. Yeah. I think it's only natural to feel it. And again, making it okay, you know, that we're all not that different from one another, you know, and in the world that we live in today, we're really used to seeing the final finished product of things. And so then a lot of the self-doubt can come into us, and now we're comparing ourselves, which is another trait of perfectionism. Well, I look up to this person, and there's that fine line of inspiration and then constant comparison, and then jealousy, and then, oh, I'm not doing enough, I'm not good enough, you know, I'm not as good as them, or they have these credentials and I don't, or I have these and they don't, and then we get judgy, right? But a lot of people have similar thoughts. We just don't talk about the ugly side of how we see things, but it's a lot of us are having thoughts like that. Being able to catch the thoughts is what's really important, and learning how to kind of see this human body as like your human suit, and knowing that you can kind of almost step out of yourself and observe yourself. You can observe your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You have control over what you're thinking. And practicing that, taking yourself outside of it to say, okay, I know that this is a thought that always makes me feel a type of way, and I don't feel good when I go down this little rabbit hole. What's triggering me to have these thoughts? What am I doing? Am I on social? And that's when I start comparing myself. And then I start feeling like an imposter. Bringing a lot of awareness to the environment in which imposter syndrome is flaring up, and then realizing you have the ability to change your mind. And practicing repetition over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think that I have homework for myself, and I appreciate like this topic in particular, because I think I'm ready. Rather than talk about it, I'm rather act on it. Mm-hmm. So I do want to have some conversations. So for the people out there, we always want to give you resources or some sort of direction, but we always want to say that I don't pretend to be an expert, right? Like I can't. Desiree is an expert, right? like this is what she does, right? This is why you've gotten so much insight today, because of people like her. So I definitely want you to, if you feel like you've identified with anything we've spoken on, you know, reach out. Research, find people that are similar, that there's plenty of people willing to talk, and, you know, let's have some conversations going. Let's talk about it, right? I think it's healthy to do that. I think we're always work in progress, right? And that's the beauty of this show. I always give the show props because I've used this as an excuse to like help myself, and Ryan has been a big help, and everybody here watching, you know, people with feedback, and, you know, following your page, Desiree. Don't think I don't like cheat and like look on your page and get some inspiration too. I'm like, how is she always so energetic? How is she always so happy and smiling? And I know I'm not naive to think that you don't have your, you know, ebbs and flows, but, you know, that's a picture of consistency right there. You just got to show up, man. Right.
Yes.
Is there anything you want to leave us with, Des, before we get off?
Yeah, actually, just want to encourage anybody watching. Remember, you are in complete control of you. And I think a big lesson we've all learned this year is that we don't have control over anything, right? And so if we don't have control over what's going on in the world, we also don't have control over other people. And that can be friends and loved ones and people closest to us. And so just want to encourage you to take all that control you might want to have over other things and bring it back to self. Take that energy you're putting outwards and bring it back here and streamline it to your dreams, what goals you have. Maybe it's some time to rest while all this craziness is going on outside in the world today. But it is okay to bring it back to you. So that's what I'd like to leave with.
Love it.
So the episode is over, but the conversation continues.
Yeah, guys, if you've gotten this far, we appreciate you. Des, as always, I appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us, getting some topics for us to talk about. Like Juan said, this is like a classroom, man. We're trying to learn, and whoever's watching can learn about themselves or others, and just feel free to ask more questions about yourself and about other things. You have to understand more. But as always, tell a friend to tell her friend to tell all of her friends to follow us, and to make sure you check out Dez's socials. I'm telling you, you will not meet another person who can not only help you understand yourself more, but show you that within you applying these things in living, you can see it firsthand. So we appreciate you as a person. I've told you that since day one. If you've gotten this far, drop a like. Make sure you subscribe so you hear all of our conversations. Any questions for me, Des, or Juan, our socials will be in the description. So make sure you guys reach out to us. And that's it, man. We thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you.
They let it talk down when I'm not around, yeah. It's only tied down when I'm out of town, no. I don't trust many when I'm in the city. I've never been a shooter, but I keep them with me. Watch 'em